My name is Elle, and let me tell you something. This past Thanksgiving wasn't just another holiday. It was the day my family made sure I'd never look at them the same way again. They told a lie, just a simple, casual excuse that kept me from coming to dinner. At first, I thought nothing of it. Families get complicated, plans shift, misunderstandings happen. But when I found out the truth, it hit me like a fist in the chest. The lie wasn't to protect me, or to spare me from some uncomfortable drama. No, it was worse than that. They had gathered around the table, plates piled high with turkey and stuffing, wine glasses clinking, laughter echoing off the walls, while I was deliberately left out. And here's the cruelest part. I was the only one, the black sheep, the expendable one. My chair sat empty, not because I'd said something wrong or because I hadn't made the effort. No, it was because to them, I was just an AC tech, just a man in grease-stained coveralls who spent his days crawling through attics and fixing compressors. I wasn't someone worth showing off to friends or bragging about to relatives. I was a paycheck in their pockets, nothing more. Funny thing though, because while they pretended I didn't exist, I was the one paying for my sister's college tuition. The same sister who rolled her eyes at me in public, who lowered her voice when introducing me, who never once acknowledged the sacrifices I made for her. My parents knew it. My brother knew it. Every single one of them was more than happy to cash my checks, to let me bleed my savings dry for the sake of family. But when it came to sitting at the same table, sharing the same bread, no, that was too much. That night, as the neon sign of my HVAC shop buzzed and flickered in the twilight, I made a decision, one that would change everything. I locked up, the metal door rattling behind me, and pulled my jacket tighter as the icy Seattle air cut through me. And yet there was a strange warmth blooming in my chest, the kind of warmth that comes when pain turns into clarity. Thanksgiving was only a few days away. Normally, I would have been scrambling, fielding last-minute work orders, bracing for furnace breakdowns, making sure my crew was covered. But this year, I'd prepared everything in advance. Every job scheduled, every bonus set aside for my workers. I'd even picked out a nice bottle of wine to bring to dinner. A small gesture, a way of telling them I was proud to show up, not as a worker, but as a son, a brother, part of the family. I climbed into my truck, that old faithful beast of a machine, and the leather seat groaned beneath me. That's when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name that always carried weight. Mom. A smile tugged at the corner of my mouth, automatic, hopeful. I expected her usual pre-holiday chatter, maybe the gentle debate we always had over pie, pecan, or pumpkin. Which one should I bring? That was our little tradition. But the moment I answered, her voice stripped the smile from my face. It wasn't warm, it wasn't familiar. There was a tightness, a hesitation that made my grip on the steering wheel tighten. Whoa, honey, she began, her words careful, almost rehearsed. I wanted to talk to you about Thanksgiving. And in that pause, before she could finish, something inside me already knew. She said something was off. I could hear it the moment she spoke. My mother always carried this sharpness in her tone, this clipped efficiency, like every word had been cut clean with a knife. But now her voice wavered, uncertain, like she was inching towards something she didn't want to say out loud. Sure, what's up? I asked, trying to sound casual as I shifted my truck into drive. But even then, I felt it, the pause. Long enough for my stomach to twist, long enough for dread to slip in like a draft through a cracked window. We think it would be best if you skip dinner this year. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. My grip on the wheel went white-knuckled, and I nearly swerved into the next lane. Wait, what? Skip dinner? What do you mean skip dinner? We always do Thanksgiving together. My voice cracked between confusion and disbelief. She let out a sigh, one I knew too well, the soft, practiced kind she used when she was about to feed me some half-truth polished into a lie. Well, it's just that this year we're keeping things a little more formal. Serafina's boyfriend is bringing his parents and we thought it might be better if it was just close family. I scoffed, the sound bitter as acid rising in my throat. My chest tightened. I am close family, Mom. Of course you are, sweetheart. She rushed out, dripping her words in syrupy sweetness that tasted more like poison. It's just, you know how these professional families can be. It's important for Serafina to make a good impression. And there it was, the dagger buried clean and deep. It wasn't about space at the table. It wasn't about dinner portions or seating arrangements. No, the truth was simple and cruel. I didn't fit their picture. My job, my life, my very existence wasn't up to their standards. So what, Mom? I snapped, my voice sharp, trembling with the anger bubbling under my skin. Because I don't wear a suit and tie, I'm not good enough to sit at the table. Is that it? Don't make this about you. I let out a hollow, humorless laugh, the kind that rattles in your chest when you're too broken to cry, and too furious to stay silent. Oh, I see. So it's not about me, it's just about making sure Serafina isn't embarrassed by her lowly sister, right? She didn't respond. And in that silence, I heard more than words ever could. That silence screamed the truth. I can't believe this, I muttered, shaking my head, though she couldn't see it. Honey, it's just one dinner, she tried again, as if she could stitch the wound shut with platitudes. We'll make it up to you, maybe a family brunch next weekend. Her tone was light, rehearsed, as though brunch could replace the tradition I had built my whole life around. I hung up, no goodbye, no thank you, just silence. I sat there in the dim glow of the dashboard, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored. My breathing was shallow, uneven. One dinner, she said, as if it were nothing. But it wasn't nothing, it was everything. After years of working overtime to make sure Serafina's tuition was covered, after paying off bills that weren't mine, after swallowing my pride again and again, I was being told I didn't belong, that my hands, rough from labor, and my clothes, marked with grease, made me unworthy of the table I had helped keep standing. One dinner. That was the phrase echoing in my head, like a nail being hammered over and over into wood. One dinner. And suddenly, I knew, this wasn't about one dinner, it was about where I stood in their eyes. Disposable. Useful only when they needed me. Forgettable when they didn't. And right then, I promised myself, I wouldn't be forgotten again. Of paying for her tuition, of making sure she never had to worry about rent, groceries, or a single overdue bill, of working late nights, dragging my tired body through crawl spaces and rooftops just so she could have the kind of life that didn't leave her hands cracked and blistered like mine. And now I wasn't good enough to sit in the same room as her boyfriend's parents. The stillness in my truck pressed down on me like a weight, the hum of the engine the only sound. Then my phone vibrated against the console, snapping me out of my spiral. A text from my cousin Genevieve. My chest tightened. I need to tell you something. It's about Thanksgiving. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My thumb hovered, hesitant. Some part of me already knew what I was about to read, but knowing and seeing it written out are two different kinds of pain. I overheard Mom and Serafina talking the other day. Serafina told her she didn't want you there because she was afraid it would make her look bad in front of Dorian's parents. She said, and I quote, "I don't want them to think we come from a working-class background." I read the message twice. Then a third time. The words blurred, my stomach sinking lower with each pass. My own sister, the same one whose textbooks I'd ordered, whose tuition bills I'd paid without blinking, whose rent I'd quietly covered more than once, was ashamed of me. Ashamed of the work I did. Ashamed of the life I built with my own two hands. I wanted to hurl the phone into the dashboard, shatter the screen, break something just to match the crack tearing through me. Instead, I sat there gripping it so tightly my knuckles bleached white. Looking back, I should have seen it sooner. The signs were all there, lined up in hindsight like dominoes waiting to fall. The way she never invited me to her college events. The way she'd flinch or change the subject whenever her friends asked what I did for a living. The way she never once introduced me to her boyfriend, even though they'd been together for nearly a year. I had ignored it all, convincing myself I was being paranoid, that I was overthinking. That family, in the end, always came through. But this was undeniable. Thanksgiving Day arrived, and for the first time in my life, I spent it alone. The city was quiet, emptied out as families gathered behind closed doors. I tried to distract myself. I went for a long drive through the damp Seattle streets, stopped at a diner for coffee I'd barely tasted, even scrolled through my contacts and called a few friends, but nothing dulled the ache in my chest. That evening, against my better judgment, I opened social media, and there it was, the smiling family photos, the perfectly set dinner table, Serafina in a sleek dress, beaming next to Dorian, his parents on either side, polished and proper, like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. My mother and father grinning as if nothing were amiss. Nowhere in sight, cropped out, erased, invisible. That was the moment something in me shifted. If I wasn't good enough to sit at their table, then my money wasn't good enough to pay for Serafina's tuition. The next morning, I woke with a strange lightness in my chest. It wasn't relief exactly. No, it was something harder. Cleaner. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop making excuses for people who don't deserve them. I brewed a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the steam curling up around me, and opened my laptop. Logging into the university's payment portal had become second nature by now. I knew Serafina's account credentials better than my own streaming login. I typed them in with practiced ease. Due date, 2 weeks. Balance $21,500. My eyes lingered on the number. I had covered every semester since she started law school, never once hesitating, never once questioning if she deserved it. But this time, my cursor moved with steady purpose to the option I had never once considered. Remove payment method. A small pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to remove this account as a payer? This action cannot be undone. My lips curled into a grim smile. Yes, I clicked without a second thought. The decision felt like cutting a rope I'd been dragging for years. The laptop snapped shut with finality, and almost immediately my phone buzzed against the table. My mother's name lit up the screen. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. By the fourth call, I sighed, picked up, and braced myself. Lot. Her voice was sharp, exasperated, like she had already been mid-argument before I even answered. What are you doing? I took a slow sip of my coffee. Good morning to you too, Mom. Don't play games with me, she snapped. Serafina just called me hysterical, saying you cut off her tuition payment. Tell me that's not true. Oh, it's true, I said flatly, letting the words hang in the air. Silence. Then a sharp inhale, like she'd been slapped. Ella, how could you be so cruel? Cruel. I laughed. Short, humorless, and sharp. That's an interesting choice of words, considering she's the one who got me disinvited from Thanksgiving because she was embarrassed by me. She was just trying to make a good impression on Dorian's family, Mom argued, her tone shifting into that saccharine, guilt-tripping lilt she always used when she wanted something from me. You know how these things work. She's young. She doesn't think things through. She's 24, Mom, I said, my voice steady now, cutting clean through her excuses. She's old enough to know exactly what she's doing. Another pause. Then came the inevitable. You promised you'd support her through school. No. My voice was steady, but my grip on the mug in my hand tightened until the ceramic creaked. I promised to help my sister, not someone who treats me like I'm disposable. She didn't mean it that way. Mom tried, her voice pushing through static, grasping for any excuse that might soften the blow. She meant it exactly that way. I cut in sharper now, each word landing with the weight of years behind them. A frustrated sigh hissed through the receiver. You're overreacting. Family makes sacrifices for each other. That's just what we do. A bitter laugh rose up in my chest. though I swallowed it back before it could escape full force. Funny. Family only seems to apply when I'm the one giving, but when it's my turn to ask for just a sliver of respect, suddenly, I'm the problem. Suddenly, I'm asking for too much. She needs this, Mom pressed, her tone carrying that mix of demand and guilt she wielded like a weapon. So did I snapped before I could stop myself. My words sliced through the silence that followed. For once, Mom had no immediate comeback, no rehearsed lines about what's best for the family, no tired argument about how Serafina's future depended on me. Nothing but the weight of silence on the line. A silence I let stretch, growing heavier by the second, before I finally spoke again. I'm done, Mom. I mean it. I've spent years paying for her education, covering every expense, making sure she never had to worry about a damn thing. And the one time, I needed her to simply acknowledge me. She erased me instead. Mom exhaled sharply, irritation bleeding through her words. You're being so dramatic. I closed my eyes, the sting sharp in my chest, and forced myself to breathe steady. I think we're done here. Wait. I hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there, the phone still warm in my hand, my pulse hammering against my ribs. I had done it. I had actually severed the tie, the one thing they never thought I'd have the courage to do. I should have felt guilty. Maybe a part of me did. Some small corner of myself that still clung to the idea of family, like a child clutching a worn-out toy. But that guilt was buried under years of resentment, so deeply layered it barely registered anymore. Instead, I felt something else, something sharper, something dangerously close to satisfaction. The dim light of my living room stretched shadows across the walls as I sat there, motionless. The city hummed faintly outside, a world moving on as if nothing had changed. My coffee had long gone cold, sitting half-finished on the table. I didn't move. My mind was too busy unraveling years of memories, each one sliding into place, like puzzle pieces, forming a picture I had never wanted to see clearly. Serafina had been ashamed of me for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. The signs had been there. Christmas last year, her big party, all her law school friends crammed into some rented hall. I hadn't been invited. I'd only found out through a stray Instagram post. Her smiling face plastered front and center under a caption about celebrating success with the best people. When I asked her about it later, she brushed it off with some excuse about it being just a small thing. I let it slide. Then there was the time I happened to be near campus for a job. I thought I'd surprise her, take her out to dinner, but when she saw me walking toward her dorm, her eyes darted around like she was afraid someone might recognize me. She barely let me inside, rushed through small talk, then invented some excuse about a study group she had to run to. And the introductions. God, the introductions. To her friends, I was never my sister L. I was just, oh, this is family. As if even my name was something best left vague. As if my identity itself was something to be blurred out of the picture. Back then, I convinced myself it wasn't intentional. I told myself she was distracted, or young, or busy. I gave her the benefit of every doubt. But no, the truth was uglier, and now I couldn't look away. She had been embarrassed by me all along. The realization burned through me, a slow, searing kind of anger, the kind that doesn't explode, but simmers, coils tighter with each breath until it feels like fire in your veins. And it wasn't just anger at her, it was at me too, because I had allowed it. For years I had let her take and take, had let her diminish me with excuses, had convinced myself that family was worth sacrificing everything for. But family shouldn't be conditional, and love, real love shouldn't come with fine print. My eyes drifted back to my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard out of habit, muscle memory drawing me back into the same cycle I'd lived in. For years, logging into the university's payment portal, checking due dates, making sure everything was covered. But tonight, the screen looked different. Next semester's tuition $21,500. Due in 2 weeks. I stared at the number, my stomach twisting, my thoughts sharp as glass. And for the first time in years, I didn't see responsibility. I saw opportunity. How many late nights had I dragged myself home half awake, eyes burning, just to make sure there was enough in the account to cover her tuition? How many vacations had I canceled? How many birthdays I had skipped for myself, just so she never had to worry about rent or food or tuition deadlines? And for what? So she could erase me when it suited her, pretend I was invisible when it made her shine brighter. Not this time, not anymore. I picked up the phone, my hand steady in a way that surprised me, and dialed the university's financial office. 2 rings, then a polite voice answered, brisk and businesslike. How can I assist you today? I need to remove myself as the payer on an account, I said. My voice sounded calm, but beneath it was a quiet finality I had never felt before. A pause on the line. Are you sure? This will impact the student's enrollment status. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly, letting years of exhaustion and bitterness wash through me before answering. Yes, I said. I'm sure. The process was alarmingly simple. 5 minutes, a few verification questions, a confirmation code read back to me. That was it. The cord I had been choking myself with for years was finally cut. When I hung up, I set the phone on the counter and just stood there, waiting for guilt to creep in like it always did. But it didn't. Instead, a strange, weightless relief settled into me. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying someone else's burden. For the first time, I wasn't bleeding myself dry to keep her comfortable. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Serafina would lose her mind when she found out. And she did. The first call came less than 24 hours later. I was halfway through my morning coffee when her name lit up my phone, glowing like a curse. Serafina. I didn't even need to see the screen to know. I let it ring. She called again, then again, relentless. Each vibration rattling against the counter like a wasp trapped in glass. On the 4th attempt, I exhaled slowly, gripping the mug tighter and silenced the call. I wasn't ready. No, that wasn't right. I didn't owe her this conversation. The buzzing stopped, replaced by a voicemail notification. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. What the hell? I just got an email from the university saying my tuition payment was declined. This has to be a mistake. Call me back. Her voice was high, panicked, brittle. I set the phone down and sipped my coffee, savoring the bitterness. Let her stew in it. Another call, then another, then a text. If you don't fix this, I won't be able to enroll next semester. You can't just do this to me. My thumb hovered over the keyboard as I typed out 2 words. Not my problem. But before I hit send, I stopped. What was the point? Words were wasted on her. No message from me would make her see the years I had sacrificed. The nights I had gone without so she could have everything. She only ever noticed what she lost, never what she had been given. I deleted the draft and set the phone to silent, because if I knew anything about Serafina, it was this. She didn't handle consequences quietly, and sure enough, when I wouldn't bend, she ran straight to Dorian. She showed up at his apartment. I heard later, frantic and unraveling, hair tangled, eyes wide, pacing the floor like a trapped animal. I can't believe this, she said, her voice cracking. Lut cut me off just like that. No warning, no explanation. Dorian, poor clueless Dorian, frowned and tried to make sense of it. Wait, Lut, your sister Elle. Yes, she snapped. My tuition payment didn't go through. I tried calling her, but she won't answer me. He sat down, brows knitting in confusion. Hold on, I thought your parents were paying for school, and for the first time in years, she didn't have a script ready. No rehearsed lie, she stumbled. Well, I mean they help, but Elle was covering most of it. Most of it, Dorian's voice hardened. How much are we talking? She tried to laugh it off, to minimize it like she always did, but he pressed again, sharper this time. How much? Her answer was barely above a whisper. All of it. I could imagine the way his face must have darkened. realization cutting through whatever glossy illusion she had built. So let me get this straight, he said. Your sister has been paying for your entire education, and you let me believe your parents were covering it? She waved her hand, dismissive. It's not a big deal, but he wasn't letting it slide, and wasn't Elle not invited to Thanksgiving? What was that about? Color drained from her face. That was different. How? She had no answer, and I knew. In that silence, Dorian put it together. The puzzle she had kept hidden. The sister funding her future wasn't good enough to be acknowledged at the dinner table. Her throat tightened, scrambling for excuses. You don't get it, Dorian. It was just about appearances, about making a good impression. It's not like I don't appreciate what Elle's done, but she doesn't understand the world I'm trying to be a part of. He shook his head slowly, like he was seeing her for the first time. You mean the world where you lie about where you come from? The world where the people who actually save you aren't polished enough to mention? She stammered, but he cut her off with one word. Flat and final. Wow. Then he grabbed his keys. She blinked, panicked. Wait, where are you going? I need space. His voice was eerily calm. You're seriously mad at me over this. But he didn't answer. He just walked out, leaving her alone in the wreckage she had built. That night, my phone buzzed with a final text from her. I hope you're happy. You just ruined my life. I stared at the words until the screen dimmed, waiting for the guilt to claw at me, but it didn't. Instead, I set the phone down, finished my coffee, and let the silence wrap around me like armor. Because if she thought I had ruined her life, she hadn't learned a damn thing. She had done that all by herself. The next call wasn't hers. It was my mother. Her name flashed across the screen. Margot Calloway, as heavy as a warning bell. I could already hear the cadence she'd use. The measured disappointment. The sighs weighted with unspoken judgment. The subtle reminder that somehow I was the failure. I let it ring twice before answering. Lud, she snapped, voice sharp, urgent. I just got off the phone with Serafina. She's hysterical. I leaned back against the counter, gripping my mug so hard my knuckles ached. Yeah, maybe she should have thought about that before she treated me like I didn't exist. Lud, she scolded, softening her tone into that practiced, reasonable calm. She's your sister. You can't just abandon her like this. I exhaled through my nose, forcing myself to stay even. I didn't abandon her. I stopped funding her lifestyle. She's just a kid. I laughed, short and bitter. She's 24. She doesn't know how to handle a setback like this. Mom pressed. If she has to drop out, it could ruin her future. There it was, the truth beneath the performance. This wasn't about me. It was about damage control, about making sure Serafina's little empire didn't crumble. I stayed quiet, letting her keep talking. Yell. Please. Mom softened again, sensing my silence. You know how hard she's worked to get here. I swallowed hard, tasting iron at the back of my throat. And where was she when I was working double shifts to keep her from drowning in loans? Where was she when she let you uninvite me to Thanksgiving because she was embarrassed by me? An exasperated sigh. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I nearly dropped my mug. Are you serious? Mom, she erased me. She's been erasing me for years. She only cares now because she lost her safety net. She's family, she insisted. We help each other. I shook my head, pacing the kitchen, my pulse thundering. No, Mom. I helped her. I paid her tuition. I kept her afloat. I gave her a future. And she couldn't even give me a seat at the damn dinner table. She's scared. Lud. She's selfish. I snapped. And I'm done cleaning up after her. There was a long pause on the line, the kind where I could almost hear her heartbeat on the other end, heavy with disapproval. Then, in a voice coated with forced patience, my mother asked, "So what do you expect her to do? Just drop out?" "Not my problem," I said flatly, my words sharp enough to cut through her performance. "A novel," she warned, her voice trembling with irritation. "I mean it, Mom," I said, already exhausted from the game. "Find someone else to foot the bill." Her reply came quick, defensive. "Like who? Your father and I can't afford it. You know that." And there it was, the truth buried beneath all the guilt tripping. She never expected Serafina to figure it out on her own. She expected me to break, to bend, to cave, like I always had. But not this time. I guess Serafina's going to have to learn how to live like the rest of us, I said coolly, reaching for the end call button. Low, click. The quiet that followed was thick, almost unnatural. Too quiet. I should have known it wouldn't last. Hours later, the flood began. Dad was first. His voice was low, a rumble of disappointment that used to make me shrink as a kid. Lola, this is going too far. You're punishing your own blood. Then Aunt Delilah, sighing heavily into the receiver. I never thought you'd be so heartless. Uncle Larry chimed in not long after, his voice gruff and dismissive. It's just money. You make plenty. Don't be petty. Then cousins, family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them suddenly finding the time to dial my number. Every message was the same. Some variation of how could you? It was almost impressive, really, how quickly they had rallied behind Serafina, how easily they had painted me into the villain. Not one of them had defended me when I was quietly uninvited from Thanksgiving. Not one of them had called to ask how I was doing, or if I was okay. But the moment Serafina's tuition payments stopped, it was a family-wide emergency. I let the messages pile up, unopened, until just before midnight when my phone lit up with Mom's name again. Against my better judgment, I answered. Let me guess, I said, voice flat. You've gathered the entire family and decided to stage an intervention. This isn't funny. No, I agreed. It's pathetic. Her sharp inhale crackled through the line. How dare you? How dare I? I laughed bitterly. Where were all of you when I was working weekends, pulling overtime, making sure Serafina had everything she needed? Where were you when she pretended I didn't exist, when she hid me from her friends, when she made it clear that my life, my work, wasn't good enough for her? Silence, then a soft clearing of her throat. It's not like that. It is exactly like that, I snapped, my patience finally gone. And let me be very clear, Mom. I'm done. Serafina is on her own. I hung up, and for once I meant every word. But Serafina, she wasn't done fighting. At first it was subtle, a lingering look from a longtime client, a strange hesitation in the voices of family friends when they spoke to me. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was imagining things, until one afternoon, while finishing a routine HVAC inspection for Mrs. Carter, a woman who had trusted my services for years, she handed me a check with one hand and judgment with the other. I never thought you'd abandon your own sister like that. Ella, she said, her voice dripping with the same sanctimonious edge I'd come to recognize too well. I froze, clipboard clutched in my hands. Excuse me, she shook her head, sighing dramatically. Family is supposed to take care of each other. I just didn't think you were the kind of person to turn your back on your own blood. There it was, the venom Serafina had been planting, working its way into the ears of anyone who'd listen. I forced a thin, brittle smile. Well, Mrs. Carter, I suppose that depends on which version of the story you've heard. She pursed her lips but didn't say another word, and I didn't give her the satisfaction of explaining. Instead, I climbed into my truck, pulled out my phone, and opened social media, and there it was. Proof. Serafina had been busy. Her posts were vague, but razor-sharp in their intent, carefully worded to make her look like the innocent victim, the golden child betrayed by her greedy, selfish sister. Some people love money more than family. So disappointing. I always believed in supporting your siblings. Guess not everyone feels the same. The comments section was a chorus of sympathy. I can't believe your own family would do this to you. You deserve better, babe. Stay strong. You've always been the sweetest. I scrolled through in disbelief, my stomach twisting as I saw familiar names. Distant relatives, family friends, people who hadn't said a single word to me after Thanksgiving, now lining up to comfort her, showering her with validation. And then, as if on cue, the calls started again. My aunt, my uncle, my mother, all of them back to back, relentless. I silenced the phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. I knew exactly what they would say before they even opened their mouths. Somehow, I had gone from family to villain in less than a week, all because I had stopped playing my role as silent provider. Enough. I was done letting her control the narrative. I didn't call ahead. I didn't warn her I was coming. I drove to her apartment, the city lights blurring past me like streaks of fire. My fists clenched the wheel tighter with every turn. When I arrived, I walked straight to her door and knocked hard, loud enough that she'd know I wasn't there to play. It took a moment, but then the door swung open. Serafina stood there, phone still in her hand, eyes widening just slightly before her face smoothed into something practiced, something calculated. "Ella," she said smoothly, voice like silk hiding a knife. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I pushed past her without waiting for an invitation. She scoffed, slamming the door behind me. "Oh, come in. Why don't you?" I turned to face her, my jaw set like stone. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She blinked, feigning innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I laughed coldly, pulling my phone from my pocket and holding up her latest post. "Oh, you don't? Because this looks a hell of a lot like you trying to paint me as some heartless monster." Her lips curled into a smirk. "I'm just telling the truth." My fingers tightened around my phone. The truth is I paid your tuition for years while you pretended I didn't exist. The truth is I gave you everything, and you still acted like I was beneath you." She crossed her arms, her smirk never faltering. Dad cleared his throat, his voice carrying that same weary authority I'd grown up obeying. "You didn't have to humiliate her like that, Elle." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Humiliate her?" She stormed into my workplace, screamed in front of my employees, tried to weaponize pity in a room full of people who had seen her true colors firsthand. And somehow, I was the problem. "She humiliated herself," I said evenly, my voice calm in a way that only comes when the anger has burned past fire and settled into cold ash. Mom jumped in then, her tone brittle like glass about to crack. "She's devastated, sweetheart. You've cut her off, Dorian's left her, the university's threatening to kick her out. She's not handling it well." I let the silence stretch, savoring the way their words revealed more than they intended. Not handling it well. Translation: Serafina was falling apart without me, because for once in her life, she had to carry the weight I'd shouldered for years. "And what exactly do you want me to do about that?" I asked finally. I heard Mom's breath catch on the other end of the line, the sharp inhale of someone who had been waiting for me to offer, to cave, to be the savior again. But I didn't. Not this time. Dad spoke, low and disappointed, like he was reciting lines from a script. "Family takes care of each other, Elle, always." I laughed, short, bitter, sharp enough to cut. "Funny, I don't remember anyone taking care of me. Not when Serafina made sure I was the invisible sibling. Not when she paraded her life like she was royalty while I was the help. Not when you told me to stay away from Thanksgiving because I wasn't polished enough for her boyfriend's parents. Where was family takes care of each other then?" The silence on their end was heavy, suffocating. Finally, Mom tried again, her voice soft and trembling now, weaponizing fragility. "We just don't want to lose her. She's your sister." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, letting the weight of years press against me. "No, Mom," I whispered, my tone icy and final. "She lost me, and that's on her." I hung up before they could say another word. My phone buzzed again almost immediately, then again, and again, but I let each call die unanswered. I was done being the net Serafina could fall into whenever the world stopped cushioning her. She had spun her web of lies, her manipulations, her perfect little image, and now, finally, she was tangled in it. And I'll admit it, There was something deeply satisfying about watching it unravel. Look, honey, maybe things got out of hand, but Seraphina's young, she needs help. I closed my eyes, pressing the phone tighter against my ear. The same old plea, the same old excuse. Let me guess, I said, my voice low, tired. You think I should help her? Mom exhaled sharply, that familiar sound of irritation laced with guilt. Low, come on, maybe we can work something out. You're doing well after all. A bitter laugh slipped from my throat as I stretched my legs out on the couch, sinking deeper into the cushions. Ah, I see, so now I'm part of the family again, when you need my money. Lo, don't be like this, Dad cut in, his voice stiff, a poor attempt at authority. We just think. No, my answer was sharp, final. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. I could almost hear their surprise through the line. You think I'll cave? That I'll do what I've always done, sacrifice my peace for her comfort? I shook my head, even though they couldn't see me. Not anymore. I'm done. Find another ATM. And with that, I hung up. For the first time, I truly felt free. But freedom comes at a cost. The first few days after cutting ties with my family were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, no guilt-tripping voicemails twisting my emotions back against me. Just silence. A strange, unnerving silence. After years of being bombarded by demands, manipulations, and expectations, the absence of noise felt almost unnatural. And yet, there was still that restless part of me, the part conditioned to expect the phone to ring at any second, waiting for another desperate plea. But no one called, no one came. Instead, the days stretched on, peaceful and uninterrupted, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to breathe. It was Genevieve who finally broke the silence. I was on my lunch break, sitting outside my office with a cup of coffee warming my hands, when her name lit up my phone screen. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I answered. Hey, I said, leaning back in my chair. Hey, she replied, her voice softer than usual. I just wanted to check in, see how you're holding up. I exhaled, my eyes drifting up to the gray winter sky. Honestly, better than I expected. There was a pause. I figured, she said carefully, but I also thought you'd want to know what's going on with them. I didn't ask who them was. I already knew. Still, I stayed quiet, letting her decide whether to continue. Seraphina moved back home, she said, her tone neutral. She's taking a break from school, says she's going to figure things out, but, she trailed off with a dry laugh. Well, you know how she is. I closed my eyes, unsurprised. And my parents? I asked, though I already knew that answer too. They're struggling financially. But of course, they won't admit you were right. Another humorless chuckle. They're still blaming you for everything. As if it's your fault Seraphina burned every bridge she had. Sounds about right, I murmured, taking another sip of coffee. They'll never change. Well, she said, after a pause, her voice gentle. I hope you know that. I do, I whispered. I think I've always known. I just wasn't ready to accept it before. Well, she sighed. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. A small smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Thanks, Jen. Any time, she replied softly. And hey, Merry Christmas. You deserve a good one this year. The day before Christmas Eve, I found myself sitting at my desk, staring at the expansion plans for my business. Growth I'd once only dreamed of was now real. More clients, more employees, more opportunities. For so long, I had downplayed my success, carried it like a secret shame, as though I owed it to my family to stay small. But not anymore. I wasn't apologizing for the life I had built. I wasn't ashamed of my work, my choices, my independence. I was finally investing in myself, instead of people who saw me as nothing more than a walking bank account. And that realization, that was the most freeing of all. That night, as I wound down for bed, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text. From Mom. Merry Christmas. We miss you. Let's talk. I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. A year ago, I would have jumped at the chance. I would have let guilt steer me, second-guessed myself, convinced myself to cave. But not this time. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, then deleted the message. I had nothing left to say. For the first time in my life, I chose myself, and it felt damn good. Before I wrap up, let me leave you with something to think about. Life has a way of teaching us hard lessons, especially when it comes to family. We're raised to believe family is everything, that loyalty to blood is absolute. But what happens when that loyalty is one-sided? When your sacrifices are expected, but never appreciated? Walking away from a toxic family dynamic doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't make you selfish. It means you finally chose yourself, and that choice, hard as it is, isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. So if there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: your worth is not measured by what you can give others. You are not an ATM. You are not a stepping stone. You deserve respect, even from the people who share your blood. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Have you ever walked away from a situation that was draining you dry? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel seen, drop a 1 in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. If you didn't like it, tell me why. I want to hear your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Trust me, we have plenty more to tell. Thanks for watching. And remember, choosing yourself is never the wrong choice. See you in the next one.